Can you have an all-knowing ignorant?
So there you go. Yes, in the sense that. In the sense that you're not fusing.
You know what you're doing. You're thinking from a Christian perspective.
Wait,
Can we put our Islam and Christian hat aside? Can you have an all-knowing ignorant?
Yes. Here's why.
Please.
Here's why.
Please tell me and give me an example of an all-knowing ignorant. I'm going to accept Christianity.
Here's why.
Please. But please demonstrate it.
ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين.
You came all the way from Australia.
All for you, man.
Man, I feel special. I don't know any Muslims that came all the way from me, but this Christian guy has. Fantastic. Let's go. What's your?
Right.
Do you know my argument?
I know your argument, but what I want to do is also share from a slightly different angle a similar argument that we have in our own in-house discussions.
Okay.
So, have you heard of the Flatland analogy from Carl Sagan?
No.
Are you familiar with Carl Sagan?
No.
Why Allah has two right hand and one shin?
Okay.
Sorry.
Have you seen movies like Interstellar? Like Christopher Nolan's Interstellar?
No. I don't know.
All right. The analogy is this. The analogy is this. In fact, I think this topic, we can build bridges in this context with respect to what ultimately happens, and that's what you and I both believe in, and that is the day of resurrection, that ultimate day.
Yeah.
Also in the context where we will see Allah's face.
Inshallah.
Right? Okay. Now the Christian model has a mechanism by which of how we can see Allah's face. And my question always to Muslims is the mystery of how that happens.
Yes.
And this comes now down to this Trinity model and all the the shapes that you're doing and so on.
Yeah.
So the analogy that I will use is this.
Yeah.
Imagine a flatlander.
Yeah.
Okay? He only knows length and width, but there's no such thing as up.
3D. He doesn't know 3D.
Exactly.
It's 2D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to communicate to this being from up, notice that from my vantage point, with just a one-dimensional advantage, I can omnisciently and omnipresently see where he is, but from his vantage point, he is locked in a Cartesian plane at any given moment.
Okay.
So if I said, hey, go to the left, or go to the right, or go forward or back, he will agree. He can do that. But if I said go up
or down, he can't.
The word up is alien, foreign.
Yeah.
So the only way for me to then try and communicate an up or down is for me to break myself down into his level.
Yeah.
Now let's just say if I go into Flatland and I stick my finger into Flatland, what shape will he see?
He would just see he wouldn't see it going in. He would just see a block.
No. Remember, Flatland is 2 dimensions.
Yeah, no. So if you're putting it down, from his perspective, he'll just see an object in front of him.
He won't see anything. No, so imagine again, it's hard to conceive, but imagine we are Flatlanders.
Yes.
We're only dealing with lines in 2-dimensional space.
Yeah, I know.
So, what line can my 3-dimensional cylinder finger form when I go in?
Just a straight line.
Exactly, but it'll be a circle because it's a cross-section, right?
Yeah.
So that means as I'm entering the plane, a small circle will enlarge to a big circle.
Yeah.
If I put 3 fingers in, 3 fingers will appear.
Okay.
Now, let's just say hypothetically, I went to Mr. Flat, and I went like, and I went to Mrs. Flat, and I went. They have a theological debate. Mr. Flat says I saw 1 circle. Mrs. Flat says I saw 3 circles.
Okay.
The irony is they're both correct. And now here's where eschatology comes into play. For Mr. Flat and Mrs. Flat to have a concept of me, a 3-dimensional being, just like how you will one day see Allah's face when the veil is removed, means we have to transcend this reality somehow, like an upgrade.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Because Allah is far beyond our reality, right?
Yes.
So, imagine then, Mr. Flat is, say, depressed. Even Mrs. Flat, like how do I conceive of 1 and 3? What does that mean? They don't even realize I'm even more complicated just than 3 or 1 circle.
Yeah.
So what I have to do I can still go into their plane, and I can pick Mr. Flat up, and now notice something new is happening to him. I'm pushing him up into a third dimensional level and transforming him. The early church called it theosis, glorification. I'm transforming him into a three-dimensional mold, and now he can see what up looks like, and now he can be face to face with me. That's how I would defend the Trinity or theosis.
But how does that answer the question of God, Jesus being fully God and fully man? Because they're distinct shapes. This is a triangle. If we say this is human, and God, the square, you cannot have a triangle square, correct?
Right. No, you can't.
Okay, so we're saying, how could you say fully God and fully man? They're like, no logic was like, oh, you can bring the shapes together. That's not my argument. Oh, you can put a triangle in the square. That wasn't my argument. It's heresy. And that's why he did a terrible job. My argument is the following. Can you have a independent, dependent being?
I would say yes.
Okay, can you how? Tell me how you can have an independent, dependent being.
Yes, okay. So
then I'll become a Christian.
Can I use
sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, a Christian will say, you can't have these, so I'll use to the camera, you can't have these like that. You can't.
No logic said he might be able to.
No, I'll explain what he meant by the bigger shape and all that.
Teach it. Yeah, that's heresy, by the way.
But I'll also share what I believe, which I believe is also in line with the Nicene Creed, all that stuff.
Yes.
The belief is that, say this is me, the three-dimensional being, and say this is Mr. Flat in his two-dimensional level, okay? And then just say hypothetically, the whole virgin birth thing. So Jesus' body is a Mr. Flat.
Okay.
Right? Okay. But the Christian argument is that this three-dimensional being is going to be in the controls of a Mr. Flat body. The whole incarnation concept is the Logos in hypostasis with the body. Like, in other words, you believe in a soul that controls, say, the mind. Substance dualism. So you have your physical body, but then your very soul itself is the driver, so to speak, of your physical body.
They're both dependent.
Of each other, yes.
Yeah, but the soul is also dependent.
Based on dependent on who?
No, it's dependent even with the creator, the independent being.
Yeah, but the soul is dependent ultimately because Allah makes you exist, right?
The soul doesn't depend on the body. When we die, our body decays. The soul carries on living.
Yeah, but the soul's very existence can't be. It can't be causing its own existence. Allah is maintaining its existence.
No, of course. It is post-eternal.
Yes.
But it was created at one point.
Yes, but
God Almighty is pre-eternal and post-eternal. That's why he's independent.
But the human soul would be still a creature.
Of course, it's dependent. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now notice this. The Christian argument is that we have a perfect man, Jesus.
Yes.
But he's perfect because he's able to overcome this thing called entropy, thermodynamics, error, sin.
Yeah.
Because there's a very interesting bottleneck happening between a finite, dependent, fleshy, Mr. Flat thing, and a higher three-dimensional, obviously independent being, right, will be at the controls of that Mr. Flat body.
Okay.
In other words, forgive me for saying this, but I'm saying it for the sake of argument. Obviously, Allah is omniscient, right? So imagine Allah omnisciently controlling finite controls versus a soul which is finite, controlling finite controls. Naturally, the two will be prone to corruption and decay and sin. But Allah is not intimidated by finite control because he can control it perfectly despite the bottleneck between what's a finite object and him being this grand eternal being. But the only way for them two to work, obviously they can't be fused. They have to be in hypostasis, which is next to each other.
You said they cannot be fused.
Yes.
That is our argument. Nobody said them being, for example, next to each other, argument's sake. When we see God Almighty, we're going to be dependent beings seeing the independent.
Yes.
Good.
Exactly.
No.
The question is how?
But yes. We are not the independent, and the independent is not the dependent.
Exactly.
So we're saying, look,
you're getting it.
The dependent. No, I'm not getting it. You're not understanding.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
No, you agree with me?
This is why I became a Christian from atheism.
Good. But you need to come to the final stage, which is Islam.
Okay.
Yes, the final stop. You haven't gone there yet. The boss is about another journey.
Yeah.
I'm saying Yeah. By the way, it's lovely talking to you.
Okay.
You're
Thank
very
you. Thank you.
gentle. You're
Yeah.
respectful.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that. I just want to have a dialogue. I don't want to insult anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike no logic saying that you can desecrate the Quran. I will never desecrate the Bible.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is this: we're not saying they cannot be next to each other.
But Orthodox Christianity is saying that.
What we're saying is the following: fully God and fully man
Yes.
it's like infusion. You're saying they are, and I'm saying
Yes.
that is the thing. You cannot have a fully God, fully man in one body. It is an impossibility.
Okay, so
you can't, because
okay,
if I say to you, okay, how many shapes?
2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're saying if you join them together, it's an impossible existence. You cannot have an.
Oh, of course.
That's our argument. That was my argument.
But I'm saying that's not Orthodox Christianity
No,
either.
no. It is, because the thing is
not.
this. Look, you cannot have an independent dependent.
No.
Correct?
But Ali, with all due respect,
Yes.
I think probably that's why you're disagreeing,
No,
because
but
I would agree with you.
Exactly.
But I'm saying that's not what Orthodox Christians
What you're
believe.
saying is an impossible existence, that you can have a fully God, fully man.
Okay, so-
not infusing each other.
so let me
It
clarify.
doesn't work.
Okay, so let me
it's an
clarify.
impossible existence.
So let me clarify what the model is saying.
Yes.
Mr. Flat, okay?
Yes.
If I'm entering his plane of existence, the
Yes.
very fact that I'm entering his plane of existence,
Yeah.
because see, I am omnipotent. I'm all powerful to be able to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, imagine here's a big plane here. Here's Mr. Flat. Notice this. I'm omnipresent. I can go 3 fingers here, 1 finger here simultaneously,
Yeah,
right? Now, the very fact that there's a cross-section circle emerging in their reality is that hypostatic union in that analogy.
No.
Because this independent finger is also simultaneously causing a dependent circle around my finger to be an interaction with Mr. Flat's land.
No.
That's the point.
That is their perception that they're having. It's not a reality. Because they are two-dimensional, they have a perception of what it looks like. In reality, it's 3D.
But how is the 2D? How is the circle appearing?
No, because of a 3-dimensional action happening on a 2-dimensional plane.
But I'm modifying that plane, aren't I?
No, I know, but still, a 3-dimensional thing is going into a 2-dimensional land.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, though, still, there are 2 distinct things. One is 3D, one is 2D.
2D circle, yes.
So what I'm saying is, can you have an independent dependent? You said no. Can you have an all-knowing ignorance?
But again, the independent-dependent, I said no in the context of fusing it.
That's what I'm saying. But that's
which is not the Orthodox belief
No.
of the incarnation.
But it's an impossible, logically, rationally, to say something. It's like me saying I am fully a rhino and fully a man. That is exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying you cannot come and say just because you said something, it doesn't exist in the real world. It's an impossible existence.
Okay.
You cannot.
Okay.
Can you have an all-knowing ignorance?
Wait,
Answer this, please. What was it? Can you answer? Can you have an all-knowing ignorance?
All-knowing ignorance.
Yeah.
So I would say that. I hold to what's called a Neo-Apollinarian view of that creedal formulation.
Forget a creed. I'm just asking.
Wait. It's a model. That the mind of Christ is that. When you said all-knowing, and what was the other one?
I'm not asking Christ. I'm saying, can you have an all-knowing ignorance?
Okay, ignorant. So the mind of Christ, the mind is part of the body, right?
Yeah.
The mind obviously is growing, right? Because it's developing from baby up to adulthood. I'm talking about the mind. I'm not talking about the soul part.
Yeah.
The Christian argument is that the soul is the seat of emotion, so to speak. The soul, substance dualism. The soul is the one that activates the mind. The mind is the mechanism by which you can move, say, fingers, you can think, and so on. I'm saying that the soul, you as a person, Ali Dawah, you are not the brain. You are not that. You are the soul. So the Christian argument is the Logos is seated, so to speak. So this eternal Logos is seated in a finite seat, controlling the finite levers of the brain of that body perfectly, because he's eternal and he can perfectly control it, and hence
You said it's fine. Can you have an all-knowing ignorant?
So there you go. Yes, in the sense that. In the sense that you're not fusing.
You know what you're doing. You're thinking from a Christian perspective.
Wait,
Can we put our Islam and Christian hat aside? Can you have an all-knowing ignorance?
Yes. Here's why.
Please.
Here's why.
Please tell me and give me an example of an all-knowing ignorance. I'm going to accept Christianity.
Here's why.
Please. But please demonstrate it.
Mr. Flat, right? Is Mr. Flat ignorant? Is Mr. Flat ignorant?
Yeah.
In this analogy?
Yeah.
From my bird's eye view, because I'm a high dimensional plane, I'm all-knowing.
Yeah.
Now, I decide to enter his plane.
Do you become ignorant?
No.
Good. So you can't
That's
be...
the point.
No, 1 second. You can't have an
That's the
all-knowing
point.
ignorant.
Wait. Let me finish. I do not become ignorant, but the cross-sectional circle that emerges is a finite object.
Can you...
That's the point.
No. Can you become ignorant, an all-knowing ignorant? Can you be an all-powerful weak?
So that circle that appears,
Please. I'm
that
asking...
circle that appears
No,
in
please,
front of his plane.
but please answer. Look,
But I'm still...
Put
I'm
Christianity...
Still sovereign. I'm still
Look, put
transcendent.
Christianity and Islam to a side. Can you have an all-powerful weak?
If you're fusing it, no.
Good. Can you have an all-knowing ignorant?
If you're fusing it, no.
Okay. Can you have an independent dependent?
If you're fusing it, no.
Thank you. That's my point.
But wait, before you
That's
go,
my point.
before you go.
You see when you take
before you
Christianity
go-
out, logic and
no,
rationality
but
falls in.
that's a straw man. I'll just say this
I think it's a no man.
Wait. That's a straw man because we have this thing called hypostasis where you don't fuse it.
It's an impossibility.
You have an ignorant, all-knowing in hypostasis. Not a
Wallahi,
mix.
that's an impossibility.
That's not.
Go to any-
That's why the
any-
early church had that hypostasis
That's an
model.
impossibility. An independent dependent, a married bachelor, all-knowing ignorant, and
Ali.
all-powerful weak. Opposites.
Ali, in conclusion.
Nice talking to you.
In
Are you aware that there's a
yeah, they don't mix.
It's an impossible existence.
in conclusion, well, how do we see
Can
Allah?
you have a triangle square?
Are you aware that
That's my point.
Ali,
Mix the two shapes.
No, you cannot. You cannot have two opposites in the same place.
well, you do in the Flatland analogy.
Can you be married and single?
Exactly. Okay, guys. My wife is watching. She's going to be upset. I'm a married single. Yes. I'm a single married. Wait, let me give a disclaimer. I don't want to die when I get home. Just for the argument. Yeah, please.
Ali,
I'm a married single.
Answer me this one thing, please.
Come on, guys. Come on.
To build a bridge, answer
Come
me
on.
this one thing. How do we see Allah's face? What is the mechanism by which Allah can...
We don't know. But what we know is that Allah is not us and we're not Allah.
Okay, with all due respect,
I'm still dependent.
Why is it when I ask Muslims we don't, question...
Because we are not as loose as you are when it comes to the doctrine of Allah. We're very careful to what
Like
we
when
say
I ask
about it.
about historical details like the Pharaoh drowning, who's the Pharaoh, they say we don't know, we just trust the Quran.
No, we don't know. What's
But Christians always want the know. They always want to know the mechanism.
No, because you guys speak without having respect to your belief of God. You come and say God is a man, God can eat. You're disrespecting your belief
No,
system.
but that's what's revealed
We
to
are
us.
not as loose.
No,
We be
but that's
careful to what we
what's
say about
revealed to
Allah.
us.
I need to pray.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you. Nice talking to you guys. Nice talking to you guys.